it's always better if you're there on, yeah. So, I mean, if you keep your videos on, it's always great. So I can make that personal connect and, um, sense, what I'm talking, whether you're getting what I'm saying. So it's always good to have videos.
Sure. Hello, nice to see you again.
Have you been? Yeah, same here. Thank you so much. So how has it been going?
It's good. It was a great summer. Thank you.
Oh, yeah,
And how about you?
definitely. Yeah, all well. Just, I think more or less settled now in Canada. Um, yeah, so, seen all the seasonal changes now and gone through those changes. I think my topic today is about seasons only, and that's the reason I chose this topic, because there's so much going on in the nature and within us, and we don't actually, often realize that it's not something going on with us, but it's something going with the nature and how it's impacting us as such. So I thought maybe let me do a session on this one today.
Oh, that's great.
Okay. Hi, Divya. Hi. Hi, Dijal. Hi, how are you? Great. So I think
Attend
before I
your
start, I think,
session also, and I really liked it this time you did it, so I'm back.
okay, which session did you attend last?
It was actually a little holistic session, and I got
Long
like there
back.
was you spoke about.
That must be long back. Yeah.
It was
Yeah, because yeah. Okay. Great. Okay. So I think before I start, in the meantime, whosoever joins can keep coming in. So, before I start, I just want to set up the context of understanding from you guys first, specifically during this season, this time of the year. Are there any specific health concerns that you experience, or is there any specific understanding that you would want to have from this session specifically related to the season? Because then I'll keep my session, I'll consider all those pointers while talking about this concept. So if you could just, unmute yourself and let me know what are your expectations from this session, and I'll move on accordingly.
Basically, I think in October it's just too it's like a lot of heat in Mumbai in India. So I think I've been experiencing some major discomfort in my stomach. I think 2-3 times this has happened in the month of October in terms of acidity or like something. Like right now also I'm having some really bad bacterial infection and I'm on some medication for that.
Okay.
Oh, so
No,
you're in Mumbai. We're the opposite. We're getting very cold in
oh
Canada.
yeah. Yeah. No, but this will help you definitely, because it's one, yes, of course, it's seasonal, and secondly, it's seasonal as well as generic. So in the sense that even if you bring about the changes, you take, like if you implement those changes that we talk about, you will definitely be benefited, because anyways, even if we are on the other side of the world and we are getting into those colder months, still all across the world, because of the shuffling of the seasons, whatsoever the season be, the digestive system goes through a shift as well. So if you try to kind of lighten yourself up, it's definitely going to help you, irrespective of which part of the world you are in right now. Great. So yeah, anybody else who would just want to share what would you expect from the session, and I'll move on accordingly.
Deep for me, my major problem right now is still my skin, the eczema, and it's kind of concentrated around chin and face. So I'm still fluctuating between clear and then very aggravated, and so I don't know. I don't know how the season will go. Usually it's worse in the summer, but now we go into a very dry season.
Yeah. No, I think you are definitely going to benefit out of this, and I think you just rightly, figured that out during the season. If you have eczema or any kind of chronic skin conditions, the flare ups do happen, and we'll talk conceptually why do these flare ups happen. Now, I'll definitely pick that topic. It's there in my session as well. So I think, yeah, we have enough people. Anybody else wants to share their expectations from the session, or do you think we can start? Just unmute and let me know. Okay, yeah. Okay, then I think we'll start. If everybody can just put themselves on mute, so that it'll be easier for everybody to take away from. Thank you so much. Okay, so I'll present screen, and I'll take you through some understanding around what goes on during the season, and I think we can start from there. Just let me know if my screen is visible. Yeah, can you see my screen? Can anybody just unmute and let me know if the screen is visible?
Yes, it's
Yeah,
visible.
we can see the screen.
Perfect. I think I'll unshare and then start again. Okay, visible now?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Okay, perfect. So, okay, the topic that I want to talk about today is about Ayurveda and yoga approach to autumn plans. And, most often it does happen for a lot of us that we, uh, during these seasonal changes, we are going through a lot. And sometimes we are not able to realize, like for the people who have certain kind of physical issues or experiencing some physical concerns, people who have some kind of emotional issues, like already who suffer from some emotional concerns, do see some kind of flare up happening during the transition time of from specifically summers to winters. So let's just understand from the very simple basic and from the scratch. So if you see, we have 4 seasons in an year, in most parts of the world, right? So we have summers, we then after summers there's autumn, then we have winters, and then we have spring. So the chances of experiencing body and mind issues are way higher, not during the times when the seasons have settled down, but during the time when we are moving from one season to the other. And then I mean, I think we all can relate to it, like during that transition time, most often we are experiencing um, some concerns happening to us, and those concerns can be very individualistic. So depending what part of the body you are weak in, what's going on in your body, like for years or in last few months, according to that, the flare up for each person may be different. Like if you're weak in your lungs, you'll start to feel some respiratory concerns going up. If you are weak in your skin health, you'll see flare up happening at your skin health level. If you are like very fatigued generally, you see your fatigue start to go up. Emotionally, if you are weak in terms of feeling lows and you go through those mood swings, you'll see during this time you feel an intense experience of those emotional concerns happening to you. So most often the first thing that we need to ask ourselves is that by chance that it's happening to us, or is there any logic or science behind why we are experiencing these concerns? So this is kind of the logic. It's not a scientific logic. It's a logic understood in Ayurveda and in yogic sciences, rather in all ancient holistic sciences, about during these transition times, what actually is going outside, which is impacting inside. And once we and it's very simple. Believe me, it's very, very simple. If you start to relate and understand your nature outside, like before understanding your own self, if you start to understand what's going out in the nature and try to replicate the similar, changes within yourself, you actually know what's going on. And when you know what's going on, you know what to do. So this is what I'll try to explain, knowing what's going on and then understanding what to do. So just to, uh, okay. Yeah, so I think most of you have actually been connected to me in the past, but for the ones who are new to listening to my sessions, I would just want to introduce myself. I am an yoga and Ayurveda teacher. I'm also a Hatha yoga teacher, also a macrobiotic nutritionist, a wellness coach, and author. And in between, there's a lot that I've studied for last 10 years. So my wellness journey started about 10 years back, and I have been continuously studying something or the other in holistic sciences in last 10 years. So yeah, broadly, like if I talk about my educational background, I am a yoga teacher from Sivananda School back in India. I've done various CTCs. I've done my teacher's training from an Indian institute, the Yoga Guru Institute, which was like a 500-hour program. Then I've done 500-hour Vinyasa Yoga program online, Yin Yoga online training I've done. I have been also learning Ashtanga Vinyasa Yoga from Patabi Joyce authorized teacher. I'm also an MA in Yoga and Science of Living, a certified Ayurveda lifestyle practitioner, certified macrobiotic, dietitian. Along with that, a lot of stuff going around on the food side as well that I've studied. So whatever I bring to you now is broadly it's yoga and Ayurveda, but I'll try to bring in all these concepts together, which are coming from the entire educational background that I've accumulated from all these different understand traditional as well as modern understanding of health. So broadly, yes, I'll be talking about yoga and Ayurveda, but I'll be bringing in the concepts of traditional Chinese medicine also, because traditional Chinese medicine actually little broadly helps you understand what organ systems get impacted in different seasons, and when these are the systems that will get impacted, which will give you health concerns. You really need to do something to strengthen those systems, and that's where the yoga and Ayurveda practices and approaches actually come into practice, where what's going on, where to work on, and then how to work on that. So that's how we'll proceed. Okay. Before I move on even further, I just want to talk about my story. This picture that you see on the left was in 2012. The other one is in 2023, and you can clearly see the transformation that I've gone through personally, irrespective of going ahead in age rather than otherwise. So I specifically chose these two pictures to show because the first picture that you see is exactly during the same time frame where we are now. So November month is my daughter's birthday, early November. So this picture was taken on her birthday, and the other one that you see is it was again taken in October last year. So more or less the same time frame, and the autumn transition time frame. Now, specifically why I chose this picture, like if you look at the left picture, which was taken again during the same time frame, and you can see I have some boils happening on my skin. If you see, my face looks very, very bloated, as if some cushioning is there inside, something is filled inside. So I'll talk of what it is. And on the right, if you see, for last 10 years, I had been very deeply working on myself, bringing in the aspects of macrobiotics, yoga, Ayurveda, practicing all of it together. Now a lot of seasonal flare-ups do not happen to me, and rather your appearance starts to change completely when you start to work on yourself inside out. So broadly, if I talk of what happened in last 10 years when this transition happened from 12 to 23. During that time, I had my daughter was, I think, 8 months old when this first picture was taken. That was also the time when I had just started to study macrobiotics, which was my first area of learning wellness modalities. So there was not much change. I specifically want to focus here on one thing, irrespective of the first picture taken in 2012. I was very inclined towards health and well-being since beginning, since my 20s. So I have not been a kind of a person who had been binging a lot or doing a lot of unhealthy stuff in earlier years, and immediately I switched onto kind of living healthy and bringing all these concepts. To the extent of whatever I used to read in magazines, or till that time I had not done any courses. It was just by the virtue of some health books that I was reading, some diet books I was reading, some Ayurveda, yoga books I was reading, and I'm practicing all of it all by myself. No professional courses at all. Irrespective of that, I thought that I was doing right. I was eating right. I was taking care of myself. Still, you can see my appearance used to look what shows in picture number 1. And in picture number 2 is where in last 10 years, when I actually professionally studied everything and implemented all of it in a specific pattern, in a specific discipline. And once I started doing that, I realized that knowing about health and thinking that we are doing right, even if you're bringing small little shifts, does not necessarily mean that it's working for you. And this is what happened to me till 2012, even though I thought I was doing right. But somewhere when I went on to this journey in last 10 years, I realized that there were a lot of gaps, because of which I was not seeing the results, even if I was practicing a lot of things. So If I talk about my own health physically, specifically during seasonal changes, my skin used to break up a lot. Like you can see, I used to have a lot of lymphatic buildup into the body. So the the bloating that you see in the first picture is not my weight. I mean, as soon as I used to transition into winter, this bloating used to go off. But I could not realize that why specifically only in the season I bloat a lot for no reason. Over years, I realized that your lymphatic system is really sluggish during transition times, and you really have to consciously work on your lymphatic system, which we'll talk, of course, later in the session. But I'm just giving you the background where I come from, how things happen, how changes happen in the nature, and they show us in our body and mind, and what is the approach that we need to take. So now, physically, this is what used to happen to me: a lot of tiredness, a lot of bloating. Immediately, I used to feel very heavy. Allergies used to strike, sinus, cold, flu, fever. These were like common things that used to happen during specifically transitional changes. And then at the mind level, frankly, during different phases in my life, I have been through a lot of emotional ups and downs. As I think, as a part of my personality, I mean, I had been really high on anxiety in the past, overthinker, a chronic worrier in the past, and I think that also directly used to show up on my entire, face, body, mind, everywhere. Like, it used to reflect out of my personality. Over last 10 years, I started taking control of a lot of things, starting to understand body, mind, which understanding majorly came through macrobiotics, yoga, Ayurveda, and traditional Chinese medicine. You can see how transition beautifully happens for me, and this is possible for all of us. This is this is the hope that I really want to take you ahead with in the session. That if you start to work on yourself the right way, if you know the principles, there is. I would also want to say there are no bigger principles than Ayurveda. If you're very consistent only with Ayurveda, not just about the diet, but understanding the seasonal principles, daily principles, which is the concept of dinacharya, and just start following that, you start to see drastic shifts happening in your body and mind. So this is what my story is. Moving on to the next thing. Okay, let's start actually with understanding what's going on in autumn, generally all across the world. And I think this is a common thing that most of us experience all across the world, irrespective of, which part of the world we are in. So if you see the very first area during transition, the very first changes that you start to notice is that immediately during season change, you'll start to see sinus, cold, flu immediately going up. And we see that, like, COVID also was one of the, it was under the category of those flus. And I don't know if any one of us observed that or not, but there were a lot of mishaps during COVID also, specifically during this time of the year when the season was changing. If you see in summers and winters, it was manageable. Just during the transition times, it just went off, like it just flared up like wildfire. So and this is what we're trying to understand: is there a science behind it, or it's just by chance it's happening? And definitely there's a science behind it. Subtle science of Ayurveda, modern science would not recognize this as of now, but yeah, shifts are happening. So the second level of change that you see is immediately, as I think you mentioned, digestive concerns. You start to feel some changes at that level: constipation, gastric, acidic, stomach ache. And I can completely vouch for it. I mean, irrespective of working on myself for last 10 years, very dedicatedly, even during transition times, I also sometimes go through maybe some level of constipation, some gastric concerns, acidic concerns, if the diet is not right, or if some stress levels go up. So digestive is the second area that we see that flares up during this time. The third area, I'll talk about nervous system later. I'll first pick up skin. And I think, so you just mentioned your skin and, eczema and flare-ups happening at the skin level for specifically during the season. Again, we will understand why that's happening. And the fourth system majorly is at your mind level. You see that, when you are out in the nature, maybe you feel a little lost. Most of the people, if you talk to generally, who do not relate to this time, like they don't feel in the moment, they don't feel very enthusiastic and excited about what they're doing, even if they're doing the best thing. And most of the people actually also end up relating it to their emotional conditions. Like maybe if they go through some kind of emotional ups and downs, they kind of tend to think that it's because of their personal nature that they're going through it. Yes, some part of it, it's a contribution of your personal nature, as well as the changes that are going out in the nature that make you feel a sense of emptiness, spaciness, feeling ungrounded. So this season is actually also impacting our nervous system. And the fifth system, which I forgot to mention here, is your lymphatic, which is not a direct system impacted during the seasonal shift, but it's because so if you look at these three systems, respiratory system, your skin, and some parts of your digestive system, specifically liver, are a part of our elimination organs. These are a part of our detox system. So during this time, because most of our detox systems actually get congested, and you're holding a lot of it. You're not taking out a lot of toxins in the body, which by virtue of how the nature is happening outside and the changes happening inside, the detox systems not functioning to their full capacity. You see your lymph automatically starts to it builds up, like it starts to become fuller, and it's not supposed to be fuller. So if your lymph is fuller, is where you start to see all that unwanted kind of bloatiness that I showed in the picture, or maybe some kinds of unexplained aches and pains because your lymph is full. So we need to understand and learn how do we empty out our lymph, which is also a daily practice. So we'll talk of it as we move forward. Okay, so if we again, going back to the basic concept, before we understand why these changes are happening within us, let's first understand the nature, because this is what we understand here, what's going on in the nature is exactly, will exactly apply to what's going on inside our body. So I'll first talk about the nature, which is the macrocosm concept in Ayurveda. And then I'll talk about microcosms, which are the species on the earth living on the earth. And when I say microcosm, humans is one species, and I'm talking of all the species that exist on the earth. So what is macrocosm? Macrocosm is the nature, it's the universe, it's everything that exists in the universe. Macrocosm broadly associates with maybe thinking of going back to the early man era, when the scientific advancements were not there, when it was only about nature, when it was only about trees, it was only about land, only about rivers, only about sun, moon, or all the all the attributes of nature. So that's broadly understood as macrocosm in Ayurveda, and microcosm are the species living on the earth. So in Ayurveda, it is rather in yoga and Ayurveda both, even in traditional Chinese medicine, all these ancient healing modalities, it's very deeply understood that we are the microcosms of the macrocosm, which means we are a part of the nature, and whatever goes out, happens in the nature, is exactly replicating itself inside our body. So all those health concerns, even before they manifest into a health report that you see when you go to a doctor, these health concerns, the base of these health concerns has already started to happen because of a lot of situations. It's because of the environment that you live in. It's because of the diet and lifestyle that you're following. It's because of the beliefs that you're carrying. It's because of the emotions that you're carrying. All those have already played some level of havoc on your body and mind, and ultimately, because of that deterioration happening inside the body, because of these imbalances, ultimately someday it shows up at the physical level. Because we are not aware of these concepts, we ultimately only end up understanding what shows in the medical report. But there is a very deep association with how everything has manifested slowly, gradually, coming in from everywhere, including our outside environment and the inside environment. So now we know that we are the microcosms of the macrocosm, and we also know another principle of nature, which says that nature replicates itself within us. I do understand now most of the people will not be able to relate to what I'm saying, how nature replicates itself within us. The next understanding that I create, I think it will become much more clear for you. So if you see broadly, again, going back to the times of when nature happened for the first time, okay, when no advancements, no technology, no transportation, nothing at all on Earth. When the Earth existed for the first time, let's assume that when even the species also was not there, what was there on Earth? It was Earth, which is like, if you see the Earth, which you can say is the solid part of the universe, which is very solid, which is hard, like not hard like rock, but yeah, it's quite hard. So the properties of Earth are hardness. Properties of Earth are instability. Earth does not move. It's very hard and harsh, so it does not move, right? So these are the attributes that are related to the Earth. How is Earth related to us? Any solid matter inside the body is relative, or falls under the same analogy of Earth inside our body as well. So if you see your muscles, if you see your bones, if you see the solid parts of the body, they are the earth element. So, and that when you consume earth, you build earth. Now, what does that mean? When you consume foods which are growing on the earth, which are coming from the earth, and when you're consuming earth, which means the foods that you're consuming or taking in your body, you build your body. The when I say you build earth means you build your muscles, you build your bones, you build the solid parts of the body. So that's how it becomes relative to the earth element, the macrocosm and the microcosm. Now, if you'll get water, how is water relative to us? Water is outside in the nature. What is water? It is your rivers, it's oceans, it's seas, it's the rain. Any watery thing, outside, and watery thing inside. Like inside, what's the watery thing that we have? We have urine. We have, to some extent, blood, which also, flows in the form of liquid. Then we have our digestive enzymes. Then we have our acids, which are all in liquid consistency. So the water outside and the water inside, which means if the water, now just imagine if the water outside in the nature is less, if like go to a place in the nature where the water is less, or there's a lot of sun and the water evaporates, like somewhere around the equator. And similarly, now apply this analogy within your body. You are the earth, and then the water inside your body is less, which means you're not consuming enough water, and the water inside the body is becoming toxic. Your digestive enzymes, your acids are playing bizarre on the body because the water is insufficient inside the body. Your body needs more water to be able to play around with that water, right? So it's something like the water inside the body has to be flowing, similar to how the difference relates to a pond and a river. Like a free flowing river, you see, is like it's very clean. It's like pure crystal clear. But if a stagnant pond, if you look at that, it's dirty. It's all kind of molds and all kinds of bacteria starts happening in those parts of the body. Similarly, inside our body, all those water areas, if the water is not flowing, which means we are not consuming enough water, the internal water will still be there, but it would be something like a stagnant pond because there is no inflow happening. In that stagnant pond, you will see a lot of viruses, a lot of bacteria starting to happen, a lot of toxicity starting to get accumulated in that small water universe inside the body. Now, a lot of flus, viruses attack you when your internal water is toxic. Okay. So that's the relationship between the water outside and the water inside. Similarly, I'll not get into all of these 5 elements. Just for your understanding, I created awareness on these 2. Maybe I can do a later session where we just only talk about these 5 elements. But fire element, quickly, if I talk about it, it's relative to our digestive fire, which is the Agni concept understood in Ayurveda. The air element, now majorly today we are going to talk about the air element because air element is the element of autumn. It is the time when you see a lot of winds blowing specifically during this time of the year, which is indicative that the airflow during this time of the year is very high. It's something like, if I have to again give you an analogy, just think of when you travel in an aeroplane. And if the aeroplane is passing through a very rough patch of air, the aeroplane starts to fluctuate like this, right? I mean, it's literally fluctuating. It's kind of passing through that air and fluctuating. So what does that mean? Similarly, outside in the nature, when you see that high rush of air outside in the nature, you see everything becomes unstable. The trees become unstable. The leaves start to dry out. Even some weaker trees start to fall off. So too much of air, balance of air is good. Too much of air is hazardous, and it starts to create a lot of instability. Now, inside our body, this is the time there is a lot of instability happening because of the air element being high in the nature, and similarly that air element replicating itself inside our body because of the nature and because of our diet and lifestyle, which we do not shift to balance that air inside the body. So now what will balance the air inside the body? Any thick consistency will balance the air. So what contains the air? Air is like light. It can move in any direction. It can just blow out everything. So what is it that will contain air? If you put anything heavy on top on say maybe there's a balloon full of air, and if you put something heavy on it, it kind of blows out the balloon. Similarly, if you have a lot of air inside the body, you need some substance, some oiliness, some hydration to contain that air. So if you are not working on these elements during this time of the year, you are by virtue of nature and by virtue of your diet and lifestyle, you are automatically taking your air element high. Now, when the air element is high at the body level, it blows out everything. It blows out your Agni. So if now again go back to the nature, you see when we do havans back in India. So it's what I'm talking about here is in India we have these rituals of we call it havan, where it's kind of a prayer where there's a vessel and there's you pray in front of the fire. So and if you have ever seen how the fire blows, like even in a bonfire, when you kind of flare a little, give a flare up of air to the burning fire, you see it blows even higher. So if from the summer season, when you're moving into the autumn season, summer season is the heat season, so it is relative of the element fire. So if you had a lot of gastric and acidic concerns coming in from the summer season and moving into this autumn season, and because the air element is high, it's kind of giving a flare up to your internal fire, which is your stomach acid and your digestive enzymes. That is the reason you see a lot of digestive concerns happening during this time of the year, because if you're high heat person and moving in from heat season, your heat is already high, and that little flare up of air is taking that heat even higher. It's kind of flaring it up, and that's the reason you see a flare up of gastric conditions, a flare up of acidic conditions. When your stomach is going through all of this, is where you see a lot of flare-ups happening in your skin conditions, eczema, because your gut is directly related to what's going on everywhere in the body, in your mind, on your skin, on your body, how you feel, everything all together. So gut digestion is again one of the major areas that you really need to focus on and lighten it down. Make sure that you do not flare it up to kind of burn it even higher during this time of the year. We cannot do anything about the air because air element is high. That's how nature is. We have to bring in some elements of heaviness, some elements of oiliness, some elements of Ayurvedic and yoga principles to bring that level of groundedness, which which this instability is creating because of how the air element is going high in the nature. So this is the entire background of how these 5 elements replicate ourselves in the nature. When we understand these 5 elements, we know what's going on inside, and we get a framework and a logic behind what to do and what not to do automatically by virtue of these principles. And when you start to apply that, you drastically start to see how changes happen. And I've already shown you, I've gone through those shifts myself, and I've seen how wonderfully it's worked for me, and now for my clients also we do my work. So it's like a foolproof system, I would say. And then now moving on further, now these 5 elements, each element is associated with some body part or body functioning. So initially, when I mentioned that autumn season is having a very deep impact on your on your digestion, on your respiratory system, on your colon, and that's the reason you go through digestive even constipation related concerns, and even on your skin. These are the 4 systems. I'll tell you how, like why are these 4 systems associated with specifically air element. But as of now, just keep that in mind that these 4 systems that we talked about initially are the systems directly under the scope of air element. So if air element is very high, these 4 systems will have an impact. If air element is very low, if you lack oxygen maybe, then also these systems will have a very deep impact. So for example, if you're low on oxygen, if you're not breathing well, in that case it starts to show up as a very shallow personality, very shallow skin, very not very lively kind of a person. If air element is very high, then it starts to show up in your mood, like very overwhelmed kind of feeling, high anxiety. On the skin and body, it starts to show up as too much of dryness, too much of like crackiness showing up everywhere. So this is how the energetic shifts are showing in our body and mind according to how shifts are happening out in the nature. And then another thing that we need to understand is that and these are some of the principles that I'm talking about. So all of these are the principles. Based on these principles is what the solution to what we should be doing during this time will be driven. Okay. Now the next principle is each element goes through energetic changes and seasonal shifts in different seasons, and that's the reason specifically this time frame from say August, September, October, majorly September, October, and from November onwards the season starts to settle down. So but after August onwards it starts. September, October are the ones where you start to see major repercussions of these seasonal shifts happening to you. For people who are joining in from India, and just to let you know, like during this transition time, we have certain practices in India, festivals in India rather, which are supposed to put you on a specific diet. So if you see Navratras, and this is the festive time that I'm talking about, like a 9-day festival going on. And it happens during the transition time. Like if you see Navratras happen during this transition from summer to winter, and then second time it happens during this transition from winters to summers. So and during that junction of transition is where the Navratras fall. So what is the science behind it? Now as of now, today in India we associated with it with religion, but there's a very deep science of spirituality associated with it. Ancient people understood that this transition time is a very unstable time. Okay, and specifically the transition from summers to winters, as compared to winters to summers, because from winters to summers you feel happy, you look forward to spring, but from summers to winters you don't actually look forward to winters a lot. It's like a gloomy time for a lot of people. So these ancient people figured out what happens during this, during these yearly transition times, and they came up with this concept of bringing in certain principles that will keep you grounded and balanced and will help you transition very smoothly in winter, so that you stay well in your body and mind and do not go through that repercussion of what's going on in the nature. And that's why Navratras fall definitely during this time. If you see specifically, if you follow Navratras exactly the way it should be, not the way we do right now in India, where we bring in a lot of things according to our taste. That's not actually we are following the Navratras from the health perspective. But if you get deeper into following Navratra diet very mindfully, you see you automatically go through a detox and enter winters very smoothly. You don't go through any seasonal shift. So this is actually the spiritual science behind the festive time during transition change. And then next principle that we need to do is, when we understand that the nature is going through that shift, we understand as a part of that nature what shifts are happening inside our body, and we know that this element is high during this time of the year, and these are the attributes of this element. So I'll talk of these attributes like attributes in further. But when now we know the framework, why it happens, what's going on in, what's going on out. Now with all of that, we derive to a conclusion that there for any health concern, going to a doctor is no solution. Yes, it is a quick solution for sure, but it is not a solution in terms of making sure that you don't let these changes impact you at the body and mind level. For that deeper shift, you really need to focus on changing yourself, changing your diet and lifestyle to make sure that that transition at the root level happens very smoothly. It's not about any medication. It's not only about any specific food. It's about a whole framework coming together for a specific time frame until that transition happens. So these are the principles around which the transitional changes are designed. And these principles are common to most ancient sciences, in Ayurveda, in yoga, in traditional Chinese medicine, all of them. Okay, now moving on. Now, I'll help you understand how can you relate what's going on outside to what's going on inside. Okay, and from there we'll derive to the conclusion. So if you see out in the nature what's going on, if you observe the nature, it's windy, it's very dry, it's very rough air, and it's very cool air. So these are the 4 attributes in the nature that you feel as soon as you step out during this time of the year. You also see that the green leaves start to become yellow. Okay, let me just associate this also with what's going on in the body, so that'll help you understand better. If you see it's windy, dry, rough, and cool. So what does windy mean? A lot of air moving around. When a lot of air is moving around, now imagine what happens when a lot of air is moving. It starts to dry out things, right? And that's why you see the trees start to get from green to yellow. And a lot of dryness, like the crispiness of the leaves starts to happen, which shows in the picture as well on the ground. So windiness does that. It sucks out all the hydration from the nature, and causes a lot of dryness. Now, if you see exactly this is happening to your skin as well, because of that too much of air element moving in the atmosphere, you start to feel a flare up of skin conditions. If you have chronic skin conditions, eczema, psoriasis, all of these conditions, you see immediately there's a flare up. Immediately the conditions for no reason start to go up. This is the reason, too much of air element. Now, how do you bring that control to this? I'll talk of the solutions later also, but just to relate it right now, since we are talking of the attributes of nature. So what controls windy atmosphere? It controls stability, controls it. So when there is too much of movement, you need to learn to be still. So if you're doing a lot during this time of the year, if you're moving a lot during this time of the year, if you're taking up some projects which involve a lot of too much of thinking, in that case, you are giving a flare up to the air element. You are even taking it higher. So that will cause you a lot of dryness. That will cause you a lot of emotional ups and downs. That will cause, because the air element is vulnerable during this time, immediately that flare up will happen. Now, the second attribute of this time is dryness. Dryness we see, like if the leaves and trees, we can see they're falling out. So which means this is also the time when the dryness, of course, is showing on your skin, inside your body as well. And for, I don't know if you have experienced that, but for people who are weak in their respiratory health, specifically their lungs and throats are weak, they start to feel some level of dryness in their throat as well, as if, you know, they need to sip in some water or something to bring that moisture level back to the throat. This is again because too much of air inside, too much of air outside. So the solution for this, where does it lie? So what is the opposite of dryness? Hydration. So which means this time the need of hydration automatically goes up. So even if you're not a very good water consumer, you have to consciously feed yourself water to be away from dryness. Now, if you see, then roughness in the air. So when you go out and that windy atmosphere is there, it's like rough air. It's really striking you hard on your skin. So what is the opposite of roughness? It's smoothness. So what do you need to bring in then? To counter roughness, you need to bring in some smoothness, which means maybe having some smoothness being applied on your skin to bring about that balance. You need to bring in foods which are not very hard, like you stay away from raw foods which have that roughness to that. You stay away from that. You bring in smooth food, something like porridges which are smooth and just glide through your body. And with those principles, you automatically see your digestion also starts to get better, because digestion is also impacted by high vata, the high air element. And when you bring in some oiliness, when you bring in some smoothness, it doesn't feel very harsh on the body. It glides through very smoothly inside the body, and that's where you start to create balance inside, which shows everywhere, in the health concerns that you're going through. And then this atmosphere also is cool. It's like some coolness starts to set in during this time. So what is the opposite of coolness to bring about that balance? It is hot, which means you need to focus on things which bring in heat to you. Maybe not consuming foods in a cold form, staying away from cold and these icy beverages. Anything which gives you warmth and heat is what you need to bring about that balance inside. So this is how you come to a conclusion. What is it that is required for this time to stay healthy and stable? And then moving forward, if you see what else is going on in the nature, the days are becoming shorter, which is indicative of the fact that days are meant to work, right? And nights are meant to sleep. If you logically go by how nature designed us to sleep at night and work during the daytime. So when the days are getting shorter, it's an indication that our body, the lifetime of the body is getting shorter. The capability of the body to work too much during the day is automatically that span is becoming shorter. That is also a sign that we should be having a focus on balance of work and relaxation, specifically during this time of the year. In summers, you can still pull off a little more because the daylight is more, and it's an indication your body has that energy and those hormones to keep you working for a longer time. But when days are getting shorter, it's an indirect indication. This is how we need to maintain our body and mind as well. The light is diminishing, it's becoming a little more darker. Now, if you see in the other species, except human species, all the other species on Earth, every single species if we can think of, except owls, which are like, which wake up at night and sleep during the daytime. But all the species which is a daytime, which is awake in the daytime, during this time of the year, everybody starts to get into hibernation. You look at lizards. I'm talking of lizards because these are very common in everybody's house. But if you look at broader in the jungle environment, also you see the animals start to become not very active. They're kind of confined to their caves, confined to their own homes. So this is a time which is indicative of the fact that you need to be really cozy and warm and contained within yourself, and think of the ideas which you can implement during the springtime, which is the time to show up to kind of achieve what you want to. So these are like some spiritual sides of this time of the year. I think the rest of the points I've covered. Trees are shedding leaves and leaves becoming crispier. So this is like the complete lifestyle connect of how our body and mind is functioning during this time of the year, according to how nature is functioning. Now I think I'll move on to exactly what specifically going on in our body at this time? So, I think, so you raise your hand. So maybe I'll take up the questions in the last. Should that be okay? Or is there any specific question? You can just let me know in the chat. Or I can take that up later. Or you can just keep putting in your questions in the chat box. In the end, I can take up the questions which you put across. So, okay. Now, what's going on in our body at this time? Dryness, as I mentioned, it's internal dryness starts to show up in the form of lung congestion, in the form of cough, flus, fever that's going on. Dryness externally, which is dryness is one of the attributes of the air element, right? So I'm picking up those attributes. Dryness internally in the form of lung congestion, dryness outside in the form of eczema, skin flare up. Then lack of hydration automatically out in the nature, which is showing up in the form of drying us out, us inside out. Too much of air movement going on, which we've discussed, and windy atmosphere. Now, if you see, what is that one organ in the body that's directly responsible for, that's responsible for taking in air? It's our lungs. How do you take in air? You breathe, you take in air, and it's your lungs which is taking in air. So your lungs are directly associated with the air element because this is the vessel that takes in the air inside the body. So that is the reason your lungs are majorly impacted during this time of the year, because the air element is high. You believe it or not, it's going to have an impact on your lungs. So which means when you know the autumn season is about to come, even if you don't have any lung conditions, even if you don't experience any cold, flus, cough during this time of the year, still it is recommended that you start to take special care of your lungs during this time of the year to keep moving during each season really smoothly. So how in 5 elements it is understood that during one season, one element is active, and when that element is active, the organs associated with that element are active. So for this season, like its lungs. So if you take care of the organs of this element of this season, automatically when you enter into the winter season, you automatically have taken your immunity up. And when you take care of the organ system of the winters, you have automatically taken your immunity up another level, because now you're working step by step. So within a cycle of 1 year, automatically what happens is you've completely worked on your entire system, and that's where it takes about 1 year to completely strengthen your system, working each season with the principles that each season demands. And then within 1 year, you can actually transform yourself very, because you kind of detox your system month on month, not just like a one thing, but you've seen your systems have seen all those seasons and detox or kind of strengthen themselves during the time when they are most active. So this is how, holistically, like in macrobiotic diet also, we say that it takes about 1 year to transform yourself. So this is how when I work with the clients also, have different programs. I offer 1 year programs as well, because seasonally when you work on it, you initially work on at the surface level, then you go deeper, and then you go to a level where you work seasonally to bring in 1 year to bring about those deeper shifts inside the body. So coming back to this, now lungs is the vessel from where the air goes in. Now, if like lungs and large intestine in the traditional Chinese medicine. Now I want to bring in some concepts of traditional Chinese medicine also here, which very deeply talks about specifically the organ systems which work in coordination. So your lungs and your large intestine work in coordination. Okay, what does it mean for the people who are constipated? Maybe taking a lot of constipation relieving kind of medications or some herbal supplements or whatever. Some of them may feel relief, some of them may not even feel relief. For the people who don't feel relief, they really need to check if they are breathing well or not, because if your lung air element is related to your lungs and your large intestine, and that's the reason if you see flatulence, it's an air element, right? It's an air element inside the body. So flatulence happens in your large intestine, and so the intake vessel for air is lungs. The outward vessel for air is large intestine, and they work together. So when the air element outside is too much, it's creating a lot of windiness, a dry, cool kind of attributes. It's impacting the organs which are supposed to take in that air. Now, in this season, you're actually not taking air, you're taking in the wind, the roughness of the air, which is impacting you inside. That roughness is impacting your lung, the inward vessel, and it's impacting your large intestine, the outward vessel. That's the reason a lot of flatulence also for a lot of people starts to go up during this time of the year. So which means you have to focus on lungs and large intestine during autumn. Now, another system which very deeply gets impacted during the time of because of the too much air movement. Now, in yogic sciences, it is understood that air element is your nervous system is very deeply associated with the air element. So vata, which is the Ayurveda concept, and the air element, it impacts your nervous system deeply. So if I have to give it, I think I just give that analogy like the aeroplane analogy. Like aeroplane is moving through a rough patch of air. So let's consider that aeroplane is your nervous system that's riding you through life. Your experiences, your feelings is happening all through your nervous system. So let's assume that your nervous system is an aeroplane, and that aeroplane is passing through a very rough patch of air. It's fluctuating like this. Similarly, when there's too much of air happening inside outside, and your nervous system is riding through it, it fluctuates. Your mood swings go up and down, your anxiety levels experience up and down, you start to feel a level of emptiness and spaciness. Similarly to how you experience that spaciness in the atmosphere when the aeroplane is moving, it's only air and nothing else. You feel like nowhere. And this is exactly the feeling that we are going through during this time of the year. So your nervous system automatically tends to feel unsettled, ungrounded, and these anxiety feelings start to happen during this time. So this is this is like a deeper understanding of outside, inside, and from here now we come to the principles, most important Ayurveda principles, from where the solution to this time of the year has been driven in Ayurveda as well. So it's believed in Ayurveda that like increases like. This now what does this mean? If the air is automatically high outside, and if the air inside is high within you also, which shows up in these nervous disorders and dry skin, that's that's indicative that air element is high in your body, and that's why you're going through all that roughness and patches of dryness. Like increases like. So if you do anything in your diet and lifestyle, in your thoughts, in your mind, in your body, that increases the air element. Even if you take medication, it's not helping you, because like increases like, which means, for example, if you have like pursue in your case, let me take that example. If you go through this, if you're experiencing flare up of eczema during this time of the year, and if you are consuming and if you decide that let me go skydiving during this time of the year, I think so. I'm just trying to relate air element to the air element. During this time of the year, you have eczema, your body is already dry, and you decide I want to do skydiving during this time of the year. Now skydiving is passing through that rough patch of air, right? Even if you apply best kinds of creams, best kinds of solution to your skin, while passing through that rough patch of air is still going to get dry. It's still going to give you that cracky feeling. Why? Because like increases like. When you are already high on air and you bring in an element of air additionally in your diet and lifestyle, a flare up happens. So another example, very subtle example, if I have to take now internally, if I have to talk about food, for example. So you're dry inside, it's a flare up of vata season, and you decide, okay, you go to a movie and you say, okay, I need to eat popcorns. I feel hungry, I need to eat popcorn. Now popcorns is very airy. It's very airy. If you see, there is no weight, even if it is like such a big bowl of popcorn, but it's very airy. So you're taking in air. That will cause you even more dryness. Even if popcorn is healthy, but it's not healthy for you, specifically if you're high on dryness during this time of the year. So that's how you filter out your diet, knowing taking out everything that's drying you, bringing in everything that's moistening you, and then bringing in that balance. So that's principle number one. The principle number two of Ayurveda, which says, bring in opposite qualities to bring back balance. This is from the solution from the problem perspective, it's principle number one, like increases like. The problem will increase if you bring in the like thing. And from the solution perspective, the principle number two applies, which is bring in opposite qualities. So I think I spoke of it initially also, like when I gave you the opposite of windy, opposite of roughness, smoothness. So you need to bring in smoothness in your life, in your diet, so that's the attribute of smoothness. Now we need to see, how do I bring in the smoothness in my life in different areas of my life? Do I bring in that smoothness on my skin by applying maybe some oil? Do I bring in that smoothness by adding a little more oil to my meal? So that's how you fit that attribute of smoothness everywhere in your diet, lifestyle, and your personality. So now that we know that how everything conceptually works like this, and keeping these two principles in mind, we need to stay away from anything which which is like what's going on, and we need to bring in everything which is opposite of the qualities of the season. So how do we do that? Yeah. Okay. Now, how do we do that? I'll talk maybe in the next slide. This is a little more a level of understanding what we just discussed, just kind of summarizing all of that. So autumn season is high in vata quality. So the air element that I had been talking of since long, it's air element is the vata element. So vata is the terminology in Ayurveda, which resonates or replicates the too much of air. So balance of air inside our body is prana. So we are moving, we are alive because we have prana, because we have air inside the body. Now, but everything has its own extreme. So there are three things that we need to understand from the terminology of balance. Either there is balance, so either there is balance, which is maybe this, or it may be extreme, which could be a negative extreme, or it may be this extreme, which could be a positive extreme. For example, um, if I have to take this analogy in terms of food, you have a meal which is perfectly tasting salty food, like a khichdi, for example. Okay, it's just perfect. Your body and your taste buds like that taste of salt and that khichdi. Either you can have no salt in it, which is one extreme, or you can have too much salt in it. That's the other extreme. So we have to stay away from these extremes, because these extremes is where the imbalance happens. We just have to stay in the center. So about vata, what we need to know is that vata, rather for all the elements, we need to stay just in the center, in the balance, neither towards one extreme nor towards the other extreme, from where the imbalance will happen. And that's also justifies why too much of everything is not good. So and specifically from the vata perspective, the kind of health conditions that you will experience: too much of wind, too much of air, which is equal to vata. And now when vata is high, you may end up experiencing insomnia. Too much of air will not let you sleep. And for some people, I think, also go through some kind of sleep disturbances during this time. Poor digestion for most of us, we go through bloating and wind. Poor digestion, as I told you, your digestion needs stability. It needs some like in Ayurveda, if you've heard of this concept, that when you sit down for eating, there should be no distraction at all, no movement, nothing, only eating and focus on your digestion. If you move a lot, if you see a lot, you are bringing in that vata element, that air element inside the body. So you need to be very completely absorbed in your eating activity. If you're not doing that, or if you're stressed, it's going to end up in poor digestion all through the year, but specifically during this year, because the air element is also high. So it will cause you bloating and wind, which is an attribute of vata. Dry skin, we've understood why it happens, and overthinking and anxiety, we've understood why it happens, because your nervous system is directly an attribute of, it's impacted by high vata. Then vata is high movement in the season. Okay, so when you see like air, there's another attribute that we need to understand about vata, or like airy element. Too much of movement in the air, inside, outside in the atmosphere, we see that there's no discipline to it. If the air is moving or the wind is blowing, that wind may be blowing in one direction in one moment, and the other moment it may start blowing in some other direction. So there is no discipline or no stability in the way how a bizarre air moves, right? So when this bizarre air is moving inside our body, and specifically also this time of the year, that air may just blow up in any direction, okay? So if you feel that feeling of belching, if you feel that feeling of gastric conditions, it's the air moving in an opposite direction, as per the understanding of Ayurveda. So this is not medically understood, but this is like more of an Ayurveda understanding, that if you're having gastric conditions, because the air, it's kind of giving up a flare to the fire, and fire blows upwards. So if there is too much of air inside the body, and the fire, it's giving a flare up to the fire. So fire will give you some conditions which feel in the upper part of the body, specifically in your chest and the upper digestive tract in the body. So in that case, you need to bring in some stability, some routine. So during this time of the year, it is very important to have a routine. It's very important to have some stability, some grounding practices, maybe some meditation practice, or better still, if you're moving all through the day, just sitting still for say 5 minutes or 10 minutes as a practice brings you back to your balance, because this is what the vata element is lacking. It to gain its balance back, it needs stability. So that's why, and that happens with the routine. When you wake up in the morning, I have to do this through the day, irrespective of what's going out in the nature, what's going on in my life. You are following a structure. This is what vata needs, like vata, unstable vata needs a structure. So you need to bring in that structure in your life. And then vata dosha is also responsible for movement in the body. So it's the same concept as I explained. Movement in the body is like the subtle movement in the body is happening. Your nervous system is involved in that, like the passing of neurons, sending out the messages to the brain, and the brain again sending out messages to the body, how to do, what to behave, what to do, and all of that. All those aspects are very deeply related to your nervous system. So movement in the body is something like your digestion, like the foods are moving from your mouth going on to your stomach and then moving on in small intestine. So vata controls that. So when vata is high, that movement may go bizarre, and that's the reason you may experience conditions like constipation, because that movement or flow of air is not appropriate inside the body. That's also one of the reasons. That's where yoga practices help. That's where pranayama practices help, because pranayama is the traditional science of managing vata broadly, like vata, the prana, the air inside the body. When you do pranayama practices, you're not doing, what are you doing? You're playing around with your breath, which is nothing but air or the vata. So that's where pranayama practices also become really important. If you want to bring that control and management of too much of air inside your body, irrespective of the high air element outside in the body. To understand what's going on with your health during this time, we apply the principles of like increases like, which we've already talked about. And to counteract the effects of vata, we bring in the principle of opposite qualities. So now let's see how in your diet and lifestyle you bring in these opposite qualities. Traits of vata and opposite qualities would be dryness. Now, dryness is one of the attributes of this air element during this time. So to counter dryness, you need to bring in the opposite qualities of oiliness and hydration. Now, these 4 qualities that we see here, now these are our keywords. Using these keywords, we need to analyze our diet and lifestyle and everything that we do during our day and night to see, are we bringing in these qualities which are mentioned on the right side, or we are doing something which are flaring up the attributes of the air element. So we need to ensure that we don't do anything that brings in dryness, we don't do anything that brings in coldness, we don't do anything that brings in roughness, or we don't do anything that brings in a lot of movement. So a balanced movement is a must. Movement is medicine for sure, but here I'm talking of too much. Now, example of too much would be people who are gymming for 2 hours continuously. That's too much of movement. You think you're exercising? Yes, of course. Physically you are benefiting, but at the deeper level, at the level of your inner balance, too much of movement is creating even more imbalance. So you need to, specifically during this time, you need to balance that air element by grounding and stability. So you can still practice 2 hours of practice, but during this time of the year, then you can move on to maybe hatha practices where you get into a posture and stay there, rather than doing a vinyasa flow where you start and just keep doing it. So that's how you understand doing the same practices, but what is the approach of doing them to bring in that stability. So the opposite qualities of vata, dryness would be oiliness and hydration. Opposite of coldness would be bringing in more warmth to maybe adding more soup to your diet, adding more stews to your diet, adding more smooth consistency, warm foods to your diet, something like porridges. Staying away from foods like raw foods, which will bring in the element of coldness and roughness. So we want to stay away from that. Too much of movement, I've given the example of maybe too much of gymming activity, or maybe moving on more to, if you want to do 2 hours, that's absolutely okay, but 2 hours spending more time on grounding and stability creating practices rather than too much of movement practices. So now, keeping these attributes in mind, you apply these attributes to your diet, lifestyle, yoga practice, rituals, thought process, and emotions everywhere. So from there, the solution now again filters down to a level of diet. What is the kind of diet where all these attributes apply? So warm, oily, moist, heavy, and comfort foods is the food for this season to be able to deal with that roughness and dryness of the environment. This will also help you calm down your anxieties, because as I told you, anxieties go high when the air element is high, when nervous system is feeling a lot of dryness. So when you bring in warm, oily, moist stuff, it kind of that heaviness counters the lightness of vata, and that lightness creates anxiety. So we need to bring in some heavy stuff to kind of control or bring down that anxiety coming in through the vata conditions. Adding some sweet taste naturally nourishes and ground yourself. In Ayurveda, rather in traditional Chinese medicine, also it is understood that the sweet taste has nourishing and grounding properties. So maybe now when I say sweet, I don't necessarily mean the sweets in the form of refined sugars, and we need to be clear on that. What I mean here is sweets in their natural form, like sweets coming in from dates. sweet coming in from those natural foods, like sweet from sweet potato, sweet taste coming in from whole grains, sweet taste, and you have sweet tasting fruits. I would recommend to be a little low on fruits during this time of the year, because fruits will bring in the element of coldness and roughness, which we want to avoid during this time. So, but yes, cooked fruits is a good idea. Like maybe a stewed apple is a good idea, because you have countered the roughness and coldness of apple by cooking it. So you brought in the level of smoothness, you countered the roughness. So that's how you apply those principles in your cooking as well. Now, adding naturally salt food to keep you moisturized and hydrated. So salt has this property of releasing water. Like if you have seen, maybe the moment you add salt to the vegetables that you're cooking in your kitchen also, it releases water, right? So salt has this property of releasing water. So being little, I would not say very high, we don't want much salt, but whatever salt that you consume through the day, make sure that it's like in its purest form, maybe coming in from sea salt, which has a good combination of minerals going in, that keeps you hydrated and moisturized from within by releasing that hydration. Not just so one level of hydration you receive through the water and liquids that you consume. Another level of hydration you release inside your body by consuming good quality salty foods. So I'm not talking of table salt here. I'm talking of foods which are naturally rich in sodium, something like spinach. It's rich in sodium, which has those salty properties that will keep you moisturized and hydrated. So bringing in such kind of food, then swap a raw salad with steamed or saute vegetables, because we need to counter the roughness and coldness of these raw fruits. Increase the consumption of soups and cooked vegetables and apples to again counter the attributes of vata. To counter vata or airy element, you need to bring in generous amounts of oil, good oils, not the refined oils. I'm not talking of refined here. I'm talking of ghee. Maybe I'm talking of increasing intake of more seeds, nuts and seeds in your diet, or maybe going a little more high on coconut oil, using it in your dishes. So that will counter the spaciness, the lightness of the airiness of this time, which shows up in all those conditions that we just discussed. And then you need to make your evening meals nourishing but lighter, because this is the time when your digestion is weak, and if you eat meals and sleep on a very full stomach next morning, and because the digestion automatically is weak during this time because of high vata, even if you're consuming the best foods, the good foods, because it's sitting in your system, it's putrefying, it's kind of deteriorating, it's giving you all those nauseous conditions, or it's actually toxins are collecting in the body, and that will also become one of the reasons for fatigue and flare-ups in the body, specifically on the skin and everywhere, like wherever your body is weak, that flare-up will show up. And then increasing the moistening foods in your body. So moistening foods, in the category of moistening foods, you can go high on apples, have walnuts, have honey, rice, more of brown rice, and then sesame seeds, spinach. All of these foods help you prevent all those skin conditions. So maybe for you, adding all these foods in your diet can really help you deal with dry skin conditions. Then from the okay, now more dryness and coolness in the windy. Now, whatever we've discussed from the specific organ perspective, I just want to take you through what is it from the specific organs which are impacted during this time of the year, what's going to work. So dryness and coolness, as I just mentioned, is going to show up in your lung health and in your skin health. For that, you need to bring in the attributes of oiliness, moist, warm, all these attributes, and then apply it to your diet and lifestyle. How do you apply that? For oily attribute, you practice oil massage daily. That will give you an attribute of smoothness and counter roughness. Then it also helps improve your immunity. Specifically, sesame oil is great for high vata people and high vata conditions. So sesame oil kind of counters or contains high airy elements. And then increase the intake of good fats, which we've just discussed. Hydration is important. Increasing your water intake, even if you're not a very good water consumer, you must go high on water. Daily breathing practices, because pranayama or the breathing practices are the direct, it's the direct vessel which is dealing with the air element. So you need to learn to regulate it. Like same analogy of aeroplane passing through a rough patch of air. Now you need a patch which is like smooth, so that the plane or the nervous system glides through smooth. For us, that smooth patch will happen by practicing pranayama practices. And then don't let anything that congests your don't take in anything that congests your lungs as a counteraction. So one action is countering the vata, the intake of vata thing. The other side of it is not doing things which take the vata up, or lung condition, which spoil your lung condition, like smoking, like consuming cold foods, cold beverages, icy foods, and all of that. And then consume lung congesting, decongesting foods. Now there are certain foods again in the Ayurveda practices which have this property of decongesting your lungs. So it's like ginger, scallions, and maybe black pepper. These create heat inside the body and open up the decongested areas of the body. So then we have the for the nervous system, you need to bring in stability, as I mentioned, because too much of movement will impact your respiratory system, and your it's going to impact your it's replicating in your nervous system. Respiratory system we've just talked about. To some extent, all of these systems are overlapping. So some part of attributes, all of these attributes are impacting all of the others also, but majorly these specific elements have major impact on specific systems. So too much of movement has impact on your nervous system, which makes you feel anxious and ungrounded. So to counter that, you need to bring in some routine and stability in your diet, in your diet and lifestyle. You need to do things at the same time to not let your mind wander here and there, which is very easy during this time of the day. And then you need to eat grounding foods which contain you, which bring in some heaviness in your personality. So it would be like root vegetables, pumpkins, which have a higher density, and which are like root and ground vegetables which grow on the ground surface, which are heavier in nature. So bringing all these foods, and if you see, nature has already imparted us all the tools to live by nature during this time of the year. You see all those root vegetables, carrots, pumpkins, sweet potatoes automatically come during this year, and that's how it justifies why you should be eating seasonally, because what is available seasonally is designed by nature to be able to bring you to your own balance. And then now seasonal shift from heat to summer, and we've just understood it gets windy during this time of the year. It disturbs your digestion, and that replicates in your digestive health and acidic conditions. So to take care of your digestion, few things that can really help you: focus on detox, and having lemon water first thing in the morning is a great detox. Then you can increase the intake of spices, cardamom, cinnamon, cloves, which have a heat generating property. So, and then also Picatu powder, which clears out. So any mucus buildup that happens inside the body, all these spices and Picatu powder help melt all that. So Picatu powder is it's like an Ayurveda digestive powder. It's available everywhere. It's made up of 3 herbs, so you can make it at home also. I generally make it at home. So it's a combination of black pepper, ginger powder, and peat leaves. It's like a very sharp spice. So equal quantity of it, or maybe you can just buy it on Amazon. It's available. So consuming these foods will your digestive fire actually gets rekindled by adding these spices to your diet. Adding ginger and turmeric supports digestion, and it keeps inflammation at bay. So it's because of inflammation that you're experiencing all those health conditions, which is like from the root level, that the problem has gone to a level where it starts to show up in your body. And the first level of showing up happens in the form of inflammation. So you need to bring in foods which counter the inflammation. Ginger and turmeric are very good foods for that. And then you consume CCFP. CCF is coriander, fennel, and cumin. Equal quantities of each. It helps break down all the ama, the undigested matter, the toxins in your digestive system. It's an amazing tea recipe for bloating, for reducing weight, but you have to be very consistent with it, and it works amazingly. So you can have it any time through the day. That helps you kind of better your digestion. Now, regular rhythm of meal time is very, very important, because vata, as I told you, doesn't have a structure, and we need to bring in structure. So you bring in structure in your meals by having meals every day at the same time, and making your system believe that there's a structure to the day. Otherwise, eating every time, anytime through the day will take the vata up during this time. Now, and then start your mornings off with foods that rekindle your fire. So maybe having some ginger tea in the morning that rekindles your digestion. Having warm, soupy kind of breakfast that will not, overpower your digestion, and that's where you keep your digestion really easy and smooth going during this time. And from the yoga principles perspective for autumn, We have just understood four systems that are impacted during this time: respiratory system, your lymphatic system, your digestive system, your skin, and your nervous system. So for these systems, you need to bring in practices. So what are these kind of practices? For the digestive system, you need to focus on practices like Kapalbhati Pranayam and Agnisar Kriya. These are typical yoga practices. I do not have time to demonstrate that right now, but I'll talk of it later. There's another program that I'm doing, which is about practical implementation of what we are learning now. So I'll talk of it later. But yeah, just for your information, for the people who are already associated with yoga, or even for those who are not, can still maybe, just figure it out. Maybe just see some YouTube videos and try to see how to practice these practices. Practicing Pavan Muktasana series, because this series actually helps you relieve any kind of wind or air that you're holding in your large intestine. So as we just understood, large intestine is also the outward releasing vessel of the air element. So Pavan Asana series helps you release all that air in the body. Practicing belly twist will help you detox, and Bhastrika Pranayam will help you regulate your breathing better and bring in that balance of vata element inside the body. Practicing forward bend helps you detox. It kind of helps release excess air in your lower, large intestine. Warm-up practices will help release the stiffness of vata. So another attribute of vata is if there is too much of air, your body starts to get stiff, right? Stiffness, again, then we need to bring in something that brings in more flexibility. So warm-up practices is the first step to bring in all that flexibility that you're looking for. So warm-up is an absolute must during this time. Specifically a joint warm-up, like maybe all the joints, something like, moving your fingers through the day like this, and then moving your wrists like this through the day, and then focusing on each joint and rotating and moving your joints to counteract the stiffness that vata creates during this time. Practicing Surya Namaskar practices for circulation, because circulation is hampered, and if your circulation is hampered, your lymphatic system is already hampered. So you need to focus on certain practices that take your circulation up. Surya Namaskar is a very good practice for that. For nervous system balance, the best practice that you can do is Anulom Viloma Pranayam practice that brings about balance in both the brains and brings you to a state of rest. And then to calm your nervous system, you should practice meditation daily, because that brings the level of calm, stillness, and stability, which is missing during this time of the year in nature's, thing. So yeah, I think this was about how the energetics of autumn works during this time, and how you plan your diet and lifestyle during this time. Before I take up the questions, I just want to announce for whatever principles that we've understood right now, there's a program that I'm conducting on 26th October onwards. It's a 7-day program where I'll be practically giving a diet and a yoga practice and, pranayam practices, self-care and skincare rituals coming in from Ayurveda, which would be a practical implementation of what we've understood in the session right now. So there's going to be 2 hours of deeper understanding of the protocol on each part of the aspects that we've covered on diet. What is the protocol that you should be following to create your own diet? What some detox practices in naturopathic juices going in as a part of the understanding also, and implementation also, yoga and pranayam practices, protocol on designing your autumn sequence, self-care and skincare rituals practice coming in from the Ayurveda perspective. So this would be a 2-hour deeper workshop I'll be doing, Zoom session, and on top of it, I'll be sharing a diet plan, which would be a 7-day program, and there's going to be WhatsApp support. So it's like, understanding what to do for next 7 days in this 2 hours of program, and then implementing it in a community along with me. I'll be guiding and leading this program, how to go about it. I'll be sharing a yoga sequence video as well for this, a pranayam sequence, and self-care and skincare rituals as well. These would be like separate videos shared with you to be followed along with the diet. And there would be a WhatsApp group where every day, reporting can be done, and whatever like you need to share, you can do that. So it would be like a, connected kind of a program. And this is what I'm offering in this 7-day, 5-dimensional autumn plan. So it starts with a Ayurveda quiz, because you need to really understand how high are you on vata. Because for the people who are really high on vata, they need to do an extra effort for the season. For the people who are high on pitta and kapha, there's a slightly different protocol. So I'll be talking of those protocols for such people. But for that, you need to determine what's your body mind type, for which I'll be sharing an Ayurveda quiz as you enroll for this program. There's going to be a 7-day diet plan I'll be sharing, naturopathy detox recipes and special digestion and calming spice and herb concoctions. There's going to be a list of foods to stay away from, which can up your vata, and foods to bring in that can really calm down your vata during this time. There's going to be guidance document on herbs and supplements that supports your cleanse, access to videos on yoga and pranayama, and self-care and skincare rituals during this time, and everything would be conducted on WhatsApp. So yeah, if you're interested for the program, I'm sharing the link maybe on the chat. I'll do that, or maybe you can just look at it. You'll get a mail from us, like for the recording also for this session, as well as for the program. If you're interested, you can join that if you want to do that with us. Yeah, I think I'm done with my program. I'll stop sharing now and I'll quickly take up any questions if you have. Okay. So any questions, anyone? I think I'll just look at the chat. Few questions. Okay. Okay, why do we bloat up, especially before period, and how to reduce that? See, why do we bloat up during this time? During this time, actually, what happens is, rather during the period time, it's related to your large intestine. It's related to your lower part of the body, and lower part of the body is also related to your vata. The seat of vata is your large intestine. It's the lower part of the body. So during periods time, because there's hormonal shift going on, you tend to retain more air in this part of the body, lower part of the body, during your periods time, as compared to the upper part of the body. And that's the reason the bloating goes up during this time. And it's absolutely normal. It happens with everybody. What you need to understand is that you need to bring in vata balancing or vata calming practices in your way of life regularly. As I said, it's not a one-day remedy. It's not a 1-month remedy. It's not a medicinal remedy at all. How it works is, go on season by season. Spend 1 year on yourself, starting from one season, following the principles of this season, moving on to the other season, and just moving on. Once you keep moving on, automatically you'll see by the end of 1 year, all these conditions that you're talking about automatically start to gradually come down. Having said that, for some quick things, you can bring in some yoga practices, specifically the Pavan Muktasana series that I just mentioned, that help you release the bloating from the lower part of the body. Exercising your lower part of the body, specifically during periods. For the yoga asanas that you can do, not every yoga asana, maybe you can just Google and figure out, what are the practices to be done during your periods time for the lower part of the body. And doing that regularly also helps you release that bloatiness from the body. Another thing is consuming foods which are light, which are digestion friendly. All those protocols that we understood in the session today will help you deal with bloating during the period time as well. So yeah, it's more to do with energetically the vata stays during the lower part of the body. So we cannot do anything about it directly. We just need to bring in control in your diet and lifestyle to manage and balance it. So do you find sleeping longer? I think Sue has left, but yeah, during autumn time, yes, we tend to sleep more, because we are as nature is getting more into the darker phase, our body is also getting into that darker phase. It tends to automatically, we tend to sleep more, and that's absolutely okay. Okay. So what I mean by hot, see, you have to actually take a call in what part of the world you are in right now. Maybe in Canada, where I am right now, it's starting to get a little more colder and freezy, and also for us, hot and warm makes sense. But in places where it's still not very cold right now, or it's just starting to get into that, or even if it is hot, you need to bring in that balance, not by consuming too much of cold, too much of a hot, just staying somewhere in the middle, maintaining that balance. So the best strategy or approach is, if you don't understand what to do in any specific season, best is to stay in the middle. So neither too hot nor too cold. So that will ensure that you are balanced, even if you don't know what's the weather going on now outside is. Still, you are trying to maintain your inner balance, and that's what we need to focus on, irrespective of what's going outside in the need. Okay. So yeah, I think I'm done. Any other questions if anybody has, or I think we are good to wind up the session. Anyone? Okay. Great. Then thank you so much for joining me. We'll be sharing the link of this session for you to kind of just go through again if you would wish to. And you can just check out the program if you are interested. You can join us. It's about like 15 days away from now. So yeah, I look forward to having you there. Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you.